This is my quote-unquote first real YouTube video, so suggestions are always helpful. And I think I'm going to try to get out a video at least once a week, assuming university work doesn't get in the way. And I think I'm going to try to get out a video at least once a week, assuming university work doesn't get in the way. At least once a week. At least once a week. Well, you caught me red-handed. Clearly, I cannot stick to a schedule. And I think that's okay, because at the end of the day, I'm lazy. There was no upside to that. Anyway, so today, I'm going to be talking about something that I think has been going around the minds of a lot of people, and that is the many trailers and gameplay footages, the gameplay footage released for Battlefield 2042. Now, I think that this looks really promising because, hear me out, I think it's kind of a return to form for Battlefield, kind of going back to Battlefields like 3 and 4. To be honest, I didn't really play too much Battlefield before 4. I tried 3 a couple times with a couple of friends, and it was fun, but I literally picked up 4 day 1 of the beta. Like, I remember when it was just Siege of Shanghai, and we had times where we were like getting in helicopters and jumping off and blowing up the building and then collapsing it onto people and trying to crush a boat with the collapse and all that. It was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. Now, 3, I didn't play too much of. I played a little bit of the multiplayer on my friend's Xbox 360 because he really liked that game. But most of my opinions here are kind of basing it off of me having a whole lot of hours in Battlefield 4. Now, I think a lot of people kind of dog on Battlefield 1 and 5, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the time, it's totally valid. Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 have a lot of stuff that really piss me off. In Battlefield 1, when you like totally lay down after getting killed, and you just kind of sit there and you have to wait, or you can hold the button and then you go back into the menu. I don't know why, but that really frustrates me. Like, I like the way it was done in Battlefield 4, where you die, and then you kind of get booted back to the menu, and then you get like a whole like, oh, you died from this guy and he killed you with this gun. Because I think it kind of, I don't know, it just felt like I was just kind of waiting there a lot. I don't know, felt like I was just waiting around a lot. And another problem from Battlefield 1, which, I mean, I know it can be translated to 4, but like I don't care, was the fact that people are always like, whenever someone's really good on a horse, and someone gets on a horse, and they just run around in circles and kill you over and over and over again, kind of annoying. And then, 5 is kind of a mess. From literally from the moment it was announced, it was kind of a mess. And I know there's a lot of people out there that get the whole wham-wham thing about like women in games, but that really is like the bottom of the barrel of concerns to be upset about. I was kind of a little bit more frustrated with the whole way that you like unlock weapons, and the whole way that I don't know, like the whole attachment system was kind of dumb. It was kind of stupid, and honestly, I didn't really like how the MP40 didn't really have a stamped receiver, because I'm pretty sure that was the MP38. I could be totally wrong. Anyway, the reasons I'm kind of super excited about Battlefield 2042 is the fact that it's kind of introducing something, or at least a couple things that are kind of was kind of like small things that I don't think people really understood why they really liked Battlefields like 3 and 4. And by bringing it back, it's really gonna totally make it seem, kind of like a return to form almost. So basically, the big thing is verticality. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Big fields, they're pretty cool. They're a lot more realistic, but they're a lot less fun. Like when you're playing a Battlefield 4 match, and you jump off a building and whip a parachute out and then land on a tank and C4 the tank and blow it up. That's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. One would even say that that's epic. However, in Battlefield 1, you can't really do that because there's not really a lot of verticality, and I understand that, there's reasons why, but I just don't like the reasons why. Like, Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 tend to have this problem where every single map just feels like an open field, and I get that that's what it was like in World War I and World War II, but there's some point where you kind of have to just take creative liberties. Like, Call of Duty works in the way that it does for being World War I, World War II, because it's such a small arena, and you die so quickly, and you have, jumping in small maps with, limited verticality in buildings and stuff like that, but that sort of limited verticality comes with the limited skill of the actual matches. 4v4, you can stick with like a 2-story building and you'll be fine. And as long as there's a little bit of cover here and there and some rubble, you're pretty much good. But in a Battlefield match where you have access to like giant vehicles and there's these massive open maps, having the maps that just kind of feel like large and empty, save for a couple of trenches and maybe like a couple destroyed vehicles and a few rocks, or maybe like an old barn or something like that, really just kind of makes it feel like you're running through a map of nothing. And I'm gonna level with you, that's kind of boring. It's fun. I'm not gonna say it's not fun, but I fully understand why people would think that it's boring, because it seemed like there could be enemies in the corner, or like the cool kills of like jumping off maps and then, pulling out your parachute and sniping some guy from crazy far or doing whatever. It doesn't really happen. That kind of also feeds into another reason of vehicles, and I touched on this with the horse earlier, but like the vehicles in Battlefield 3 and 4, especially Battlefield 4, kind of really made it. I have memories of like stuffing 3 guys into a helicopter and then, landing on top of a building and taking out all the snipers that were there in some epic firefight, or like the guys that would shoot up the elevators and whatnot and help you out. Or the vehicles that you find scattered across the map were a lot more, I felt like it was more prevalent. Like you'd have like a motorcycle or something in Battlefield 1. Battlefield 5, you kind of have like a truck, or, you'd have tanks, tanks, especially in World War 1, the tanks are, I don't know, the way that they did vehicles with the whole idea of it being like, it just felt like they were so much less frequent. And then that was, when one person gets in a vehicle and they're really good, they kill all the other vehicles and you have to wait 100 years. And even in Battlefield 4, when someone has like really good with a vehicle, you do like a little bit of damage here and there, but because vehicles spawned in so quickly, if someone was really good with a vehicle, even if they kept killing all of your vehicles, it felt like you were slowly making chips away at their health. In Battlefield 1, it really doesn't feel like that. It just kind of feels like someone is unstoppable in a giant steel tank, and sure, you can throw some nades at them or use a grenade launcher, but then someone will just use a repair tool and the whole tank is fixed again. And it's very frustrating because there doesn't really feel like there's a lot of ways to combat vehicles besides just continuously throwing bodies at it, which clearly doesn't add to any sort of help, especially in like grand operations when you only have 100 lives. And the whole vehicles thing too, like I said, in Battlefield 4, when you're in a vehicle, it's really hard to get shot out of the vehicle because, most vehicles in that game are armored, and when they're not, such as like a dirt bike, they're very nimble and really quick, and you don't really use them to run headfirst into combat, or even like an ATV where you see all the videos of like people running at it. Usually it's with C4 on a vehicle to use as like a suicide bomber rather than, either like a horse or like a World War I dirt bike. But even like the trucks and stuff that have turrets on the back, there isn't really explosives. It's just kind of, you have like incendiary rounds or explosive rounds on the Battlefield 4 vehicles. But in Battlefield 1, you kind of just have bullets, and, of course, everything comes with the big asterisk of historical accuracy, and I fully understand that, but sometimes it doesn't fully translate to how much fun the games can be, because it's, a totally different experience. The other big thing is kind of, this is taking into both the verticality and the vehicles, but it's the technology, the whole technology thing. In Battlefield 4, it felt like you kind of had infinite attachments for guns. You could configure one gun a whole bunch of different ways. You'd have different sights that went out to different distances. You'd have suppressors, no suppressors. You'd have all kinds of like front barrel attachments for grips or grenade launchers or stuff like that. Or you could even have things like little EOD drones and other UAVs, flares, basically just like other technology is kind of featured in the games. And it really does make it feel like you're doing more, you have access to more. Because when you have access to more, it feels like your possibilities are endless. But when your only option is either bullets, slightly different kind of bullets, or like a flare gun, or like a horse, it's interesting. I'm not going to say it's not interesting. And I'm certainly also not going to say it's not fun too, because I definitely will make the claim here that Battlefield 1 and 5 were a lot better than people think they were. But having the technology at your disposal, like, C4, or a UAV, or an EOD drone, or any of the other crap that people tend to get frustrated with, I think it kind of adds some of the chaos, and it adds a lot more fun, and it adds a lot more customization to classes. And I think that's where people get really frustrated with Battlefield 1, especially Battlefield 1, because in each class in Battlefield 1, you pretty much just had like a gun, and then they'd give you like a variant or two of the gun with like slightly different attachments on it. And I get that it's a lot more quote-unquote historically accurate, but it kind of detracts from the fun. This might be a really hot take, but I feel like that's a lot of reason why people got frustrated with Red Dead Redemption 2, was just because Red Dead Redemption 2, it was very like, there was bits that were slow and kind of frustrating, to some people, especially like the hunting and all that really annoyed a lot of people, but I think that they were trying to go for more historical accuracy than they were trying to go for like fun, which is understandable, but at some point you have to take more creative liberties in order to make your game, an enjoyable game. Not that Red Dead Redemption 2 is bad at all, I love that game. But anyway, so I think another really cool thing that they're doing with the 2042 is going to be the natural disasters, and it kind of is almost like a evolution to, it's an evolution to levolution, which I thought was a really cool feature that Battlefield 4 had because it made the maps kind of feel like they're ever changing. I remember specifically when my friend Steven told me about Battlefield as a franchise, and he said, one of the big things that he pointed out was when you got shot at and the bullets hit the cover can like deteriorate and blow up over time. If you're hiding behind like a concrete barrier or something, corners will chip off. And let me tell you, I just thought that was the coolest thing ever, because in Call of Duty it didn't do that, and in Halo it certainly didn't do that. So I thought it was pretty fun. So like in Battlefields 1 and 5, it really doesn't feel like things do that. Like buildings can blow up and holes can get blown in buildings, but it doesn't feel like everything in the map is destructible, which I know it really isn't the case with Battlefield 4, but it kind of just felt more like more things were destructible, and especially with the levolution, because when something like that entirely destroys an entire part of the map and changes how like a large part of the game is played, it's really fun. And I fully understand that a lot of times people get mad at it because it just feels like it's a race to either blow it up or not blow it up, or it gets blown up in the very beginning of the game and the rest of the game is just dealing with a different map as if nothing changed. But I still think it was a really cool addition, and it could have totally been worked better rather than just kind of forgotten for Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. And finally, I think one of the cool things that's going to come out of this is the weapons. Now, there's kind of the ever-going debate, which is the three stances of weapons and technology in video games, which is past, present, and future. People from the past like to use things that are historically accurate, history buffs, people that are really into that sort of thing, really like to use guns that are like impossible to acquire nowadays, or are very rare, or especially in Battlefield 1's case, guns that didn't ever make it to combat now being used in combat. It's almost kind of like a historical fantasy or historical fiction, and I think that's really cool. I kind of like how in Battlefield 1 they took a lot of weapons that were either just historical photographs of test guns or things that didn't ever make it to frontline combat, which is a lot of the weapons that are, choosable. Now you can kind of live out like a historical fiction, which is very interesting. And then you move over to the second group of people, which is present. Those people tend to prefer things that are around today, and I totally understand why, because seeing something in real life that is currently being used and then being able to use it in the game is really interesting, especially for people who have actually, used the technology and the weapons and the vehicles and all that are in the games, because it's something that is not only modern and currently available, but also relevant, and, it kind of just says if this were to happen right now, it feels like you could live out the fantasy in the game of being able to actually, be a soldier fighting for whatever country you're fighting for, and it could actually happen with the things that are happening in the game. The third category of people would be the people that prefer games in the future, and I genuinely think I'm one of that category. I know there was that weird time in the late 2000s where it felt like every game was the future, especially when Call of Duty was having its kind of weird futuristic run. But I feel like the future also opens a lot of possibilities. Like if we think to one of the best Call of Duty games from like the modern, post-Modern Warfare 2 era, it would kind of be Black Ops 2. It would definitely be Black Ops 2. And I feel like that's because Black Ops 2 was in the future, but it wasn't in such far of the future that it was unreachable. It wasn't science fiction. I guess technically most future games are science fiction, but it kind of takes reality and builds on it rather than doing something from like a Star Trek episode. So 2042 I feel like is definitely going to be something that builds upon reality in a way that isn't totally science fiction. Because taking things that are around today and then adding 20 years allows you to get very creative with the possibility of how things that we know now will evolve without it being so far out of grasp that it feels like it could never happen. You don't have things like, crazy holograms and massive giant space battles. It's still kind of rooted in today, especially with its whole idea on climate change being the reason that all these countries are starting to fall back into conflict. And that definitely is relevant, and I think that's a very interesting take on it, because it's something that could genuinely actually happen. And so it's already kind of moving in the right direction of taking things that exist today and building on them if they were to hypothetically happen in 20 years. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of excited here. 2042 is shaping up to be a game that's really starting to go back to its, like, not quite roots, but, you know, the roots of Battlefield 3 and 4, some of the most fun Battlefield games that I have ever played, because I have played a couple others, just not too much. So 3 and 4 really set a good groundwork and a good idea for what a Battlefield game could be when you add in stuff like massive maps and crazy map changing, and it's all going to be represented in, I feel like, a much larger and better way with especially new consoles, because when you have the hardware to do things like a massive tornado and 128-person battles, it feels like it could only go up. So overall, I'm pretty excited, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to keep up to date with more trailers and stuff, and hopefully it's releasing in October, and I'm recording this in August, so hopefully it won't be too long of a wait, or at least feel like too long of a wait, but who knows. Anyway, yeah, so sorry about that long wait. I'm going to try to not do that again, but to be honest, I can't really promise anything, because when I get back into school when school starts, it's just going to be a big uh-oh. So yeah, what do you think about Battlefield 2042? I think it's going to be pretty fun. I'm probably going to play it a ton anyway. I really think it's going to be a good game. I really liked Battlefield 1 for a different reason than I like Battlefield 4, but I think between the two, I like Battlefield 4 a lot better. I haven't played too much of 5, at least not enough to form a super duper concrete opinion on it. I've played a good bit, but servers do get sparse. So yeah, if you agree with me, let me know. If you don't agree with me, let me know why. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear why people are either feeling the way they do about this game, and if you're excited that it's going to be closer to 4. If you didn't like 5, you don't need to tell me why. If you didn't like 1, let me know why, because I actually thought that game was pretty good. If you want to like the video, I would totally appreciate it, because it actually does help. The YouTube algorithm, I'm sure you've heard a billion jillion times, sucks. So if you want to hit me with a like, and, you know, if you're feeling generous, even a subscribe, it would make me feel better. And hey, who doesn't want to make an old eyeball feel better? Anyway, bye.